Please, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Charity. I was trafficked from Nigeria to Libya June 5th, 2017. Then I came back December 5th, 2017.
Okay, thank you, Charity. Now, under what conditions were you trafficked from Nigeria? Perhaps you can share with us, some background information as to what conditions or hardships you were facing before you left Nigeria.
Yeah. Why I left Nigeria is that before I left, I was married with 3 kids, 2 girls, 1 boy. So the man I married to was maltreating me just because my family was not that rich or they are poor. So he was maltreating me or telling me, sometimes if I ask him for money, he would tell me, my mates, he cannot able to afford everything I want. My mates are over there in overseas. I will tell him, can't you go? He tell me to go as a man is very difficult. For a woman, it's easy. Then I will ask him, for example, when I left now, who will not take care of the children? He will tell me, I will look for an house help to take care of them. I was just asking him, but he never knew the reason why I was asking him. But he will keep on saying it, you cannot work. It's what he can able to do, it's what he can able to afford. So just like taking mockery of me anytime he come back home, counting money and see if I'm somebody else to him. Always maltreats me, does not respect my family, always laugh at all that I came from a very poor family. Even if my mom tried to talk to him, he started insulting us. So the beating was too much. I was really praying for God, how would I going to leave this place, because the marriage was very, very tough for me to stay there. So I was not having peace at all. So I decided to change that name, Poverty People. I think by the time I travel out, he will see me and respect me. I also respect my family. So I decided to leave. I didn't leave the children for him, but I decided to go to make a better life for my family and my siblings, because I was tender age, like 3 years old when I lost my dad. I don't even know him. So my mom was the one taking care of us. So it was very hard for her to take care of us for until we grow up. So it's for me to grow up and also support my mom to also take care of my siblings. So that is the reason why I got married. So I now see when I got married, the thing is now increasing. So I took that pain on my own, because it was not in my mind right for time to travel out. I would say, yes. So that's how I left. But when I left, I didn't abandon those children for him. I took them to my auntie's place, 3 of them. So that was, when I now left, he now went to my auntie's place. He told my aunt that we want to start school. It was holiday time. That Martin now told him to let them start school in his area. He said no. Then he took the 2 girls, the elder ones. They now leave the baby there with my aunt.
Okay.
So that was how he got the children. Yeah.
Now, were you informed of where you were being trafficked to at the time you left Nigeria?
Yes, I was informed that they told me I was going to Italy. So my own was any country at all, just for me to leave that place or to make a better life.
Okay. Now, how old were your 3 children at the time you were trafficked to Libya?
The elder one, the first daughter was 5 years old, and the second one was 4 years or 3 plus. Then the third one, the boy was 10 months old.
Okay, I know you mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but just for clarity's sake, what were your hopes and dreams for your family at the time you left Nigeria?
My hope was to make a better life, especially my family. That name, that thing that the man used to laugh at me, very poor family. Who are those people? Who will not, even if I kill you here, who will come and ask me? Nobody, I didn't see anybody there. So that keeps ringing in my head as it's very, very bad. That's the reason why I traveled to bring my mom from the village. At least if I rent a flat for them and my younger ones and my children, they will start taking care of them. Even if the man see them on the way, at least we still have some respect for them. So that was the reason why I traveled, to make a better life and to bring a changes for my family.
Okay, but how is it that you ended up in Libya? I mean, your intended destination was Italy, right?
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Libya?
I ended up in Libya because the the sponsor that was supposed to take, that is paying up the money that's supposed to take me to Italy direct, he didn't pay on time. So that was the reason why, because they used to pay from one place to another. So if they didn't pay you, you are going from Benin to Lagos. By the time you get to Lagos, there's no money for you to move from Lagos to Abuja. You will not leave until they pay the money from Lagos to Abuja. That is how the journey is. That's the reason why I didn't go.
Okay, that's the reason you didn't end up back.
Yeah, and they now bust the camp. They now said that our government said they should bring the youth back, that they see that people have been dying in the sea and the place is dangerous, that we should come back home. That's when they now bust the camp and took us to prison before they now bring us to Nigeria.
Okay. You mentioned that you returned back to Nigeria December 5th, 2017, right?
Yeah.
How are you able to return back to Nigeria? You just said a little bit of it. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, like I said, they said it's a UN that sent them to come and take us. So why also they take us to the embassy in Libya, then they brought us to Nigeria in Lagos. Yeah.
Okay. Did you receive any support from the Nigerian government at the time of your return?
Yeah, when we came back to Lagos airport, so our Edo State governor sent some people to come and receive us. So that is how they see different people, different countries. So they received us there. They took us to hotel on that night. So we land at 12 a.m. in the early morning. So they took us to hotel to sleep and they received us. They gave us my money was 41,500. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you must have been eager to see your children again when you returned. Please, can you describe the situation with your family life after you returned to Nigeria?
When I returned, so they gave us a hotel in Benin here to stay if you don't have a place to go for the night. So that night I couldn't stay. I said I want to go to my auntie's place because I know my children is there. So I went there. I saw my auntie. The auntie was like, I said, where my children? Said that the father have to take them there. Where is the baby? Said my mom had take him to the village. So I called my mom. So she now brought my baby, which is December 7th. So she dropped and she said she wants to leave that very day. I said, why? She started angry with me that I left my children. Now I came back frustrated, nothing. I wish I called her with plus number. She should now not say something like that. She should have said thank God for everything. So that was how she dropped my baby up till now. That's how the baby started staying with me. So for the remaining 2 girls, I called their father. The man started abusing me that I came back with sickness.
Your husband?
Yeah. My husband. So he said I went for prostitution. I went to prostitute myself with sickness, very kind of sickness. So I should not call him that he have a wife now already. Before I came back, he now get on that wife. So I should just go. That should stay for me not to be naked and be going around everywhere like a mad person. You allow me to come and carry some of my clothes so I'll be wearing. So I tried to call him to allow me to see my children. He will not allow me to talk to them on phone. Yeah.
Okay. I know this might be a little bit hard, but can you describe the emotional toll or the effect that this had on you? You know, considering all you had just been through and you had come home now and you don't have access to your children, which, you know, they were the most important thing to you at that moment, right?
Yeah.
So please, can you describe the emotional effects that this had on you?
When I came back, especially what my mother told me, so I was really disappointed. I was ashamed. I was so disappointed of myself as because I didn't make it. It was not really easy for me at all. It was not really easy. So I don't even have it in mind again to even stay. When I say that nobody, no family to even think of, now this girl have come back now empty-handed. Let's think of how she will survive, where she will stay. Even that December period, say everybody happy in the house. I was like thinking, crying day and night. Even the money they gave to us, I used to treat myself. And my mom brought my baby. I chopped. I said, who is this? Say it's your son. I said, this one. That's what is going on. So the baby was very sick. So my aunt would take him to everywhere. They would say no blood. We spent all the money. I sold my caravan. I said I want to go back again. I was going through the head. So they was like doing the paper for me, visa. They would take us to river, doing sort of things. But I don't even mind. So the caravan, I used to take care of my baby. So to make sure I go back again. But everything, because it was not easy for me to face, nobody to help. That's the reason why I wanted to take the step again. So the thing was not really easy at all.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that. Now, did you take any steps using the justice system to endeavor to regain access to your children?
Yes.
Okay, what steps did you take and what was the outcome?
Okay. When I came back, then 2018, I went to their school to see them. Sometimes I called the father that I want to talk to them. He will start insulting me. Then I now got the father, the man's wife number. I will still call her as a woman. Please, can I talk to my children? When the man is not around, she will start insulting me. I should not call her number again. So I do go to their school to see them. I cannot buy them anything. I cannot take them home as my children. I cannot do anything for them. I was hiding seeing my children. So I stopped going because why? I cannot fight at that time because I don't have a roof over my head to put I was staying with my auntie taking care of me and my baby. That was how I stopped going. So later I not to go to Women Affairs office. Then I called him, he refused to come. They now served him a letter. So he refused to come. Then I now met with Mama Nyeka, Attorney General, Human Trafficking. So she now took me to the office at Women Rights. So I went there, they called him, they now came. Before we came, stress and time, so I don't even mind. So when he now came, so they talked to him that he should give me the children. He said no, that he will not give me the children. Even why is dead body, even if you want to go to jail, go to prison, you can go for that. I will not give me the children. I abandoned the children. That's for years now. I've not seen my children. I said, but you are the one that refused me for seeing those children. Even if I go to their school, I don't know who will tell you that I was there. He will call me to stop coming to those children's school. So it was like paying me. Now you are now accusing me of abandoning the children. So then that's okay. Now, if he will not allow me to carry the children now, he should allow me to be seeing the children often, like weekend. I should be going to this house to see them, greet them. But the guy said, no, if I come twice, that he will bring out cutlass and chase me out. So then I said, okay. Since he said, no, nothing they can do, then I said, I should go. Or I should go to their school or their leisure ground to pick them. Just like kidnap them and nobody will know where they are. I said, no, I cannot kidnap my children. That is how the issue is now.
So you haven't seen them for the past 2 years?
Yes, I have not seen them.
I see. Now, seeing what you've gone through, how else do you think the Nigerian government can help to support repatriating mothers like yourself who are refused access to their children?
The reason why the men refuse them to see their children is that because they say that the women are gone and come back. They are not like street girls. You understand? So they don't want their children to copy the same way those women are doing. Maybe they will carry the family because they don't have anything to do. So my advice to our government that they should make empowerment, open a business place for those women so that they can able to take care of their children. So that when even if they're called to fight to collect their children, at least they check them that they have a business doing. The men can also release the children for them. You know, say this one is not those that are walking around. At least she has something doing. He can take care of the children. Then she also have a building, a school for all the children, those that came back with pregnancy. That school there will be for them. They will have school bus. The government will be ready to be paying those children school fee from primary to their secondary school level. They will have a building just for those return migrant children, those that their parents is not around. There are many who came back, the children is around, but their father and their mother is no more. But somebody else brought those children to Nigeria. Actually, there will be a particular school for them to take care of those children. Actually, the money, the business their mother will having will be enough for them to feed the children. Actually, the government will take over this place of the school fees. Then open a business place for the women. At least the man will see them and respect them. Because even if the woman go back there, you don't have anything. When the woman was there, the man did not respect the woman. Now that she come back empty-handed, that will really expect the man to respect her. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Charity. Just this last question. So what services might have been helpful to you? You've already told us what you think the Nigerian government can do. Yeah. But when you came back, or now you are back, what services might have been helpful to you? A lot has been done, but looking at other women, what services could help them? Women in your shoes, or women who have been through whatever you've been through. What services can help them?
I will advise those that did not have handwork before they left. They should go and learn handwork, understand, for all these things to go out from their brain, to learn more handwork. And it's the same thing. It's yet empowerment that can help them. Empowerment, especially is empowerment. Open a shop for them. Let them see people around them. Let them see people laughing, smiling. That's what they want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Pathfinders and Charity especially for giving us the privilege of hearing her experience and hearing her needs when resettling back into her community. This further highlights the importance to consider survivor needs and provide continuous support, as we've heard previously in other sessions, when survivors either settle in new communities or resettle within their own. The second half of this session will now focus on the perspective of a support NGO and an academic on practical and theoretical forms of support needed, and how survivor voices in framing rehabilitation models and developing survivor-led efforts in counselling and advocacy support should be standard practice. I'd now like to briefly introduce you to Dr. Shana Ram, who is a senior lecturer in women's mental health at King's College London, and Jennifer Harrison, who is the service manager for Hestia's Phoenix Project. Thank you once again for joining me today. I'd like to start off with you, Sian. If you can just give us a brief overview of your work and also kind of open discussion on continuous support for survivors of modern slavery.
Yeah, of course. And thank you very much for the invitation to speak to this really critically important topic. I work primarily around modern slavery in relation to mental health. And we've known for a long time that modern slavery and human trafficking can have very serious mental health consequences. The most commonly described mental health problems among this population include depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD for short, suicidal ideation, and substance abuse. And what we also know is that these psychological consequences of modern slavery and human trafficking are long lasting. They're going to need long-term support and assistance. So, for example, a study of survivors in contact with shelters in England that I conducted a few years ago, the average time since escape for the women participants in this study was almost a year and a half. It was 16 months. And despite this being a group of women who were in contact with support services and had been out of the trafficking situation for some time, 78%, so nearly 4/5 of those women, were screening positive for one or more of depression, anxiety, or PTSD, and more than half were reporting 2 or more symptoms of suicidal ideation. So it's really clear that long-term assistance is key. And whether we're thinking about recovery or healing or stabilization, really the need for ongoing support to enable that. And of course, that should include access to psychological therapies where survivors feel ready to engage with this. And we have to appreciate that not all will. But it also goes far beyond this, and it has to integrate perceptions of safety, social support, having health and social care needs met. And we've shown across a number of studies that each of these are predictors of mental health state in this population. And across all of these, stability is really key. We've seen with research with survivors and with professionals alike that immigration status can play a really potentially disruptive role with this for international survivors. So whether that is in terms of disrupting people's ability to put down roots in a community, whether it is causing a fear of return and re-victimization and harm, whether that is poor quality, inappropriate accommodation or economic precarity. There's also disruption to social support and networks and disruption to service access, including mental health support, because people are being relocated either within a country or between countries as a result of immigration status. So there's a lot there to really be considering. There's also, I should say, a lot that we don't know. We don't know enough yet about the effectiveness of psychological and psychosocial interventions and whether or how interventions that have been evidenced for other populations require some adaptation for survivors of modern slavery. We also really don't know yet, although there's some work which is ongoing around this area, whether our current conceptualizations of mental health and well-being and recovery are meaningful and acceptable for survivors of modern slavery. And we really need to see survivor voice coming much more strongly through in terms of measurement and definition of success.
Thank you, Sian. I think you've highlighted quite a few important points there, especially when it comes to kind of analysing survivors' mental health need straight after kind of experiencing what they have gone through, and the continuous need for access to that, which poses us quite a big problem. As you've mentioned, it's really good that those that you have been able to kind of research and liaise with have been able to access that need and understand the further support that they would need psychologically, whether it's kind of then leading them to quicker access to counselling or further support. I think that's really important to highlight. I'd just like to bring in Jennifer, because I believe, I'm sure you'll kind of talk more about the Phoenix Project, but that also you provide an opportunity for survivors to access those support services and further kind of other needs that can be met, whether it's kind of financial support, accommodation support, or as mentioned earlier, counselling. So if I can just bring you in also, Jennifer.
Yeah, no worries. I think in relation to mental health support, I think it's so crucial throughout a survivor going through the national referral mechanism, but particularly afterwards as well. I think there's a real perception previously of support ending and survivors just having no support whatsoever. And I think that the Home Office perhaps didn't quite realise that this further support was needed. And we were really lucky to start the Phoenix Project in 2018 to provide that long-term support for survivors, completely separate from the victim care contract, meaning that we were able to provide support, to as long as the survivor needed that support for. And I think a real key aspect of that was the mental health support and, helping them access those services. We're very lucky in the Phoenix Project that we've currently got funding for women to access funded like counselling and therapeutic support. We found real barriers in, when women go through the NRM process, we're able to access, whether it be IAP support or whether it be specific counselling services. But then later on, there's still this continuous need for therapeutic support. However, women and men really struggle to access that, particularly for free. We're often given a lot of, options that are quite costly and that the survivors themselves can't pay for. We've been really lucky that through through the Phoenix Project at the moment, we're funded through the tampon tax, and we're able to provide that external counselling support. And it's been really interesting kind of working in the long-term support sector, because not just the women and men need support around the experiences that's happened to them, but also dealing with more long-term issues. And what we've found over the past couple of years is it's often around preparing for the next steps. So particularly around women whose children may have been with them at the point of exploitation, or women that have been sexually exploited, their children have been a result of that. It's helping women access counselling to prepare them for those really difficult conversations that they've got to have as parents, which has been really interesting for us to learn as well. And just making sure that the questions, where is my dad, why don't we live in the country that we come from, why don't we have any family here? There's some real difficult situations that women have to face with their children. And we've been really lucky that we've been able to kind of facilitate that support for them. And yeah, there's just a real need at the minute for just a lot more access to free counselling support services that's really specialised, because there's a lot of waiting lists at the minute, and it's quite difficult to access long-term mental health support for survivors.
No, I completely agree. I'd just like to follow up on that, actually. So when talking about the different influences that can affect and enhance the need for counselling support, I think you touched upon briefly around the financial stability of that. Could you just share a little bit more about what needs are also met when you engage with survivors of modern slavery once they've, for example, received their decision of an NRM? What are the immediate needs that are needed in order for them to better settle within the community?
Yeah, it really depends on whether or not they've had any leave to remain given to them at that point, as to what the next steps are. If they've been recognised as a victim of modern slavery, but there's no sort of leave to remain given from that decision and they're still waiting on asylum, it is very much us making sure that they're accessing NAS support if they're eligible, and helping them with various food parcels and things like that. For those particular survivors, it's also about continuing to support them through the immigration process. So often we have survivors that, they received a positive decision, they've been really happy with that and are really looking forward to, you know, building the next steps of their life. However, then a few months later are faced with a negative asylum decision, and then we need to support them through the appeal process, which is so re-traumatizing to have to go back over everything. And it's really confusing, I think, for them, because they get a positive decision, then it's a negative, you know, nothing really changes with that positive decision. So that in itself, again, just linking it back to mental health, really heightens the mental health in that situation. And yeah, we just continue to support them kind of as the teams would under the victim care contract, you know, making sure they've got access to GPs, dentists, you know, education, you know, all those kind of things. Whereas if somebody has got leave to remain, or, you know, shortly after coming to us, they get a positive asylum decision and they are granted leave to remain in the UK, then we are able to support them to access benefits. You know, once they've got recourse, we're able to also support them to access housing through the local authority. If they are ready, we're able to support them through the employment process as well, or, you know, continuing to access different educational options as well. What makes the Phoenix Project quite special is, as well as having our team of caseworkers, we also have a really strong team of volunteers that support alongside the caseworkers. So when a survivor's at a point that they're ready to interact with volunteers, we'll look at matching them up to befriend us, and then once they've got to know them, they can also bring some of their skills in. So one example that I always really like to use, because it's a really nice one, is we had a gentleman who was studying plumbing at college, and he was matched up with one of our volunteers who helped him build his CV in kind of preparation for finishing his course. As they got to know each other, the volunteer explained, you know, look, he has a construction background, and, you know, he'd really like to help this gentleman get a work placement because he's got some great contacts in London. And he was able to facilitate a placement at a really great firm, and upon completing his plumbing course, was offered full-time employment within the plumbing industry. So I just think that we're very lucky with the Phoenix Project that we've been able to kind of utilise the kind of skills and of the volunteers to kind of really enhance our service that we provide.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that sounds really amazing. It's glad to hear that those connections are made, because they are invaluable. And I think it brings a grand sense of normality, which can be really difficult to establish once going through such a traumatic process. I'd like to bring in Sian again, if possible. So just to kind of further explain the research that you have done and the links, the intersectionality between kind of mental health, economic support, and etc. I think, what kind of gaps and practical needs were brought further from your research to kind of build a bigger picture of this kind of support that can potentially be passed on to support organisations such as Phoenix Project to enhance the level of advocacy they can provide?
Yeah, I mean, we used a tool called the Campabile assessment of need to try and get a sense of the broad range of needs that survivors might have when they were in contact with support services. And really what came out was how varied they were. There wasn't kind of, you know, a single or a small set of needs that kind of patterned neatly. You know, they ranged really from support with language, support with legal, support to access services. I think, you know, we see a lot coming at the really an ongoing need for advocacy over quite a long period of time to be able to register, to use services, to navigate systems and bureaucracies. Ranging, you know, then to things much more in terms of budgeting, using public transport, being able to keep a mobile phone topped up, support with parenting, support to access community services, leisure services, spiritual services. So really, I think it is very, very wide-ranging, and it just points to the importance of kind of starting with a person and doing an individually tailored needs assessment and seeing, you know, what is important for this person at that point in their lives and their recovery, and what do they need to help them move forward. One thing I did just want to flag, actually, it's a kind of slightly so it's a related point but slightly peripheral, is one of the patterns that we did see a lot in our research was the similarity in experiences and needs of women who've experienced sexual exploitation and women who've experienced domestic servitude. And I think a lot of the time women who've experienced domestic servitude get grouped with people who've experienced other forms of forced labour. But actually, they're much more similar in terms of experiences and the needs to women who've experienced sexual exploitation, in that they've also often experienced very high levels of sexual violence, very high levels of isolation, and their mental health needs and some of their other health needs seem to be much more closely aligned. So I think that's just worth bearing in mind and flagging too.
Brilliant, thank you. I just also wanted to kind of follow up with that. So in terms of the research that you have conducted, is there any kind of access for you to provide some level of policy development with key actors within policy to better legislate for better services for continuous support? We've kind of seen a lot of protection around protecting survivors and prevention, but then there also needs to be similar emphasis on continuous support and what measures need to be put from a policy standpoint so they can have better access to such services.
Yeah, absolutely. So our research was that we were very fortunate in that we were commissioned by NIHR, which is funding that comes via Department of Health and Social Care, really to inform the NHS response. So we had great buy-in from Department of Health around the recommendations we were making in terms of need for greater NHS awareness and guidance. And we've had some great guidance come out from NHS England and Public Health England around trying to increase health sector response. And then we as a research group have also, as we've gone through, fed into consultations and inquiries and really kind of joined those calls for the need for support to be long lasting, because it's really clear what we see from the research that, people don't come out of the trafficking situation and receive a short-term period of support and then immediately back on their feet. That might be some people's experience. It's not most people's experience. And so we really can see that need for support that might drop down in intensity or might change in focus, but should be continuing through for a sustained period of time.
Thank you. I would just like to ask Jennifer, if possible, following on from that, what would you say from a project perspective around multi-agency working and how that can really enhance the support that you are able to deliver to survivors?
Yeah, I would say it's extremely important. I think multi-agency from the offset, I think, when for us in particular, because we're very much post NRM, we have our wider modern slavery response team at Hestia as well. Having that internal transition is really important for a survivor, and kind of so internally having like a multi-agency approach, having like a real nice face-to-face handover, that the survivor feels really comfortable to kind of move on to the next phase of their recovery is really important. But then I think with external other agencies, it's so important. And I think some of the greatest successes that we do have is when there's a lot of multi-agencies involved, when there's sort of safeguarding concern, when everybody's meeting regularly and working together, whether that be with social services or other mental health professionals, whether we're working with the police or the immigration solicitors, like when everybody kind of taps in together. And I think NGOs often work as a bit of a middleman for that, to kind of keep all communication flowing, just to make sure that the survivor's need is kind of at the base of everything, and that when everybody's in communication with each other, it just makes things much easier and you get much better results all round for everyone.
Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. I wanted to kind of conclude by asking if you had any other additional points that you wanted to make before we open it up to the audience to provide kind of questions over to you. If I'd like to start with Sian, if you had any other points you wanted to make.
No, not particularly. Thank you. I think great questions, and really happy to take questions from the audience who are listening. Thank you.
Thanks. And yourself, Jennifer, is there anything else that you wanted to note?
Yeah, no further sort of updates from me, but yeah, really happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Brilliant. So now I would like to open up the question and answer segment. If you'd like to utilise the chat box on your right-hand side, I believe, then you will be able to kind of send in direct questions, of which we will have a live segment with both Sian and Jennifer. But thank you once again for joining us today, and would like to open it up to the audience.